Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to episode number 122 of Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Thank you for tuning in this evening. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and it is Monday, November 23rd, 2020. Coming up in the following segment, I'll be joined by tonight's guests, Jude Marr and C.T. Salazar. Both authors have new poetry collections available through Animal Heart Press. So I'm looking forward to discussing those projects and hearing them read selections from the books. Stay tuned for our conversation coming up in just a bit. And in the meantime, please be sure to click the follow button to subscribe to the channel here on 17 Numa Radio so as to stay in the loop about future episodes. Thank you to everyone who supports the show by spreading the word and sharing links with your friends. Your support is greatly appreciated. My memory is mostly shot. A collection of groans and sighs shifting throughout the years, laughter and sentimental sways, traumas and trigger points, the subtle difference between a bleeding heart and silent detachment. Of trees in the forest. Don't chase falling leaves into screaming traffic. What are you, a child of God or the world? There are surefire suns and shining signs to rest on your head as crumbs and crowns, and if a frog had wings, it wouldn't land on its ass every time it jumped. All the wisdom from our fathers, still drinking from plastic bottles while we're walking in the rain. The little white lies that we tell ourselves in life often hurt for a while. But what is worse by far are the wicked truths of this world. Reality is a relentless beast, offering both terrible burdens of responsibility and awesome blessings of love. Just as the sky puckers up to place a sweet kiss upon your precious lips, the sea may storm with a sucker punch to the side of your jaw. There is some beauty in sorrow, but there is infinite light along the path of purpose. The scales are always balanced perfectly by forces beyond our comprehension or control. I try to focus on what is decent and pure and inspired with the spirit of goodwill. If I could, I would rip off the eyelids of ignorance and apathy, but I am weak, of mortal flesh, and so I just keep singing in thankfulness so that peace can prosper. I will never blink again. There is too much that can be lost in the flash of an instant. Poetry whispered carnal, karmic vibrations into the huff and puff chamber of your heart. The lungs, like a train, kept steady. Poetry laughs at the thought, then perishes it. Poetry is a political bomb, a psychological war, a primal roar for restoration. Poetry is that idea of yours, this idea of mine, another idea from over yonder, and the fact that we can all exist in the same sentence structure without blowing each other to kingdom come. Poetry is kaleidoscopic in nature, splashed with waves of neon fluorescence, operating through the use of wavelengths that can't quite pierce the veil of worldly dimension and form. Poetry likes the way you lick your lips when there is magic pulsing in your eyes. Poetry opened its peepers as the dust settled, took a breath before the garden grew. Poetry never looks at itself in the mirror because its reflection is always changing. Poetry has our best interest in mind, but that doesn't mean it won't sometimes rattle our brains with a riddle. Poetry motions laughter into existence to take the edge off creation's furrowed brow. Poetry lines up ducks and herds cats when all else fails. Poetry was bathed in a river where poisoned serpents were known to dwell, was only bitten a few times, survived with a cool scar and bloodshot eyes. Poetry is the last refuge of a philosopher who has grown weary of too much on-the-nose rhetoric. Poetry always wears a mask at the same time it's busy exposing deeper truths. Poetry is the point at which all pretense and peacocking flamboyance is done away with, and you decide to just shoot straight. Alright, that'll wrap things up here at the top of the show. Wishing everyone a happy week of Thanksgiving ahead. Let's go to a music break now and then come back on the other side with tonight's guests, Jude Marr and C.T. Salazar. Stay tuned.
sing to you just one more time. Song for a heart so big God wouldn't let it live. May angels lead you in. Hear you, me, my friend, on sleepless roads, the sleepless go. May angels lead you in. May angels lead you in. Hear you, me, my friend, on sleepless roads, the sleepless go. May angels lead you in. On sleepless roads, the sleepless go. May angels lead you in. Knob Crizzle.
Someone's always paying for that banter, baby.
I went to a cobbler to fix a hole in my shoe. He took one look at my face and said, I can fix that hole in you. I beg your pardon, I'm not looking for a cure. I've seen enough from my friends in the depths of the God-sick blues. You know I am a liar. You know I am a liar. Nobody helps a liar. 'Cause I've been down to Dixie and dropped acid on my tongue. Tripped upon the land till enough was enough. I was a little bit lighter and adventure on my sleeve. I was a little drunk and looking for company. So I found myself a sweetheart with the softest of hands. We were unlucky in love,
back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. If there's anyone interested in appearing as a guest on a future episode of the program, please feel free to contact me via email at 17numa@gmail.com. I'd be more than happy to get you set up for an episode coming up in the new year ahead. On tonight's episode, we have two guests. Jude Marr was born in Dundee, Scotland in 1958. After a career in librarianship followed by 12 years of figuring out how to write, they arrived in the United States in 2011 to study for an MFA at Georgia College in Milledgeville, followed by a PhD from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Their poetry has appeared in many publications, and their chapbook Breakfast for the Birds came out from Finishing Line Press in 2017. Jude is now the director of the Writing Center at Florida State University and lives in Tallahassee. And C.T. Salazar is a Latinx poet and librarian from Mississippi. His debut full-length collection, Headless John the Baptist, Hitchhiking, is forthcoming in 2022 from Acre Books. He's the author of 3 chapbooks, most recently American Cave Wall Sonnets from Bull City Press and 40 Stitches Sewing a Body Against a Ramshackle Night from Animal Heart Press. He's the 2020 recipient of the Mississippi Institute of Arts and Letters Award in Poetry. His poems have most recently appeared in The Rumpus, the Cincinnati Review, Rhino, and 32 Poems. Jude and CT, want to welcome you both to the program.
Hi.
Hey, Scott.
How are you today? How are y'all doing?
Yeah, doing good. How are you?
Doing fantastic, thank you. Glad to have y'all on the program here tonight. Excited to talk about your collections from Animal Heart Press, and always exciting to have multiple guests on the show. We'll do some readings a little bit later on. And first, I'm going to get into a little bit of your backgrounds for the listeners. Maybe we could start with you, Jude. Tell us a little bit about your life and interest in poetry and how it all began.
Well, that's a long story, but I'll keep it short. Well, okay, so I wanted to be a writer when I was very young, and then I forgot all about it for a long time. And I got to be 40, and I had, I guess, a midlife crisis, true to form. And I started writing fiction, or trying to. I spent a long time figuring that out. And then one day I was in a fiction workshop and was doing a fiction writing exercise, and I accidentally wrote a poem. And I've been writing poems ever since.
Spontaneous creation, eh?
Something like that. It was just as well, because I'm a much better poet than I am a fiction writer.
Well, fortunate that you stumbled upon the path then. Thanks for sharing that, Jude. CT, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me on. Great to hear you, Jude.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
You too, CT. So, CT, you're living there in Mississippi. Would you like to talk a little bit about the area you live in and your interest in poetry?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a lifelong Mississippi resident, and that has been one of the most poetry-inducing experiences. I didn't always want to be a writer. I always loved reading, but I never really was never really prompted to write until actually college, and I just kind of stumbled into college not knowing what to do, and then took a creative writing class. And at the time, I didn't know that was like a class that you could take at college, because I never had creative writing in high school or anything. But absolutely loved it. And then, just kind of right then and there, decided to major in poetry and creative writing, and then I've just been writing ever since, and I'm 28 now, and I think I'll probably always be writing poetry.
Fantastic, and I know that both of you all have new collections out from Animal Heart Press. I want to thank Mary James Serrano for setting up everything here tonight,
and also your publisher there, Elizabeth Horan, who's a friend of the show, and I want to bring her online now to say hello, and maybe we can get into talking a bit about both of y'all's books. Ellie, how are you?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, good. Hi. Hi, CT. Hi, Jude. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Ellie.
So, Scott, it feels like it's been a very long time since we've chatted, Scott. I don't know how that happened.
It's been a couple of months, it seems like, yeah. Time flies by in 2020.
Right. Well, it's wonderful to see you, and we're so proud at Animal Heart to have these two incredible gems of authors that, you know, their books are so spectacular, but they're just such wonderful humans, too, and so proud to have them here with you tonight. So thank you for hosting.
Oh, absolutely. Always a pleasure. Well, Jude, let's start off with your new collection, We Know Each Other by Our Wounds. Can you talk a little bit about the inspiration that brought this project to light and maybe some of the themes that run through it?
Sure. Well, this is really the work that I've been doing for the last several years, since I went to Louisiana, actually, although I don't think that Louisiana is the strongest influence on these poems. I think it takes me a while to process what I'm writing about. So I have a lag of a few years before the words get on the page. But really, I think this book is about a journey. It's partly my journey. It's partly, I hope, a shared journey. The title is, it's the title of one of the poems in the book, but actually it's become much more than that. It seems to have resonated with people, and I think that my journey has, for a long time, been about trying to find a way to connect, and for everyone to be able to be who they are, without labels and without categories, and yet at the same time always knowing how impossible that is in the world that we live in right now, and the way that it's set up, constantly label and separate, and in particular, because I'm non-binary, so I'm particularly anti-binary, and they crop up all over the place, of course. So it's a journey toward some kind of a place where maybe we can both be ourselves and separate, and remember what also we share in our common humanity.
When you're talking about having a lag time between the events that you eventually write about, are you writing poems or snippets of things, ideas, initially throughout that phase, or is just everything blocked off and then one day you get to a point where you're ready to write about it and it just all comes out?
That's a really interesting question, because I think actually this is a different experience for me now than it used to be. I used to write fairly constantly bits and pieces of things, and some of them would come to fruition, but it was, reasonably constant process. What I've discovered in the last few years is that the constant process seems to have left me. Maybe I just have too many other things to do, and a lot of what I do in my life is to do with writing, so sometimes that writing takes over. But I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's just an interesting change. I notice now that I kind of store up material, and then I will write quite a lot in a relatively short space of time. That's what happened with a lot of the material in this collection. And since the start of this year, I really haven't written very much at all. But I'm comfortable with that, because I think that the moment will come when, some of the experiences of this year, which may take a little longer to process than usual, I imagine, will come out in some way, in some form, but I'm just not quite sure what that will be yet.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I'm always interested in hearing about writers' process and how they get to the point of creation. And on that note, CT, I want to bring you in. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your process of writing and putting books together, how that happens, and how this new collection that you have from Animal Heart Press came about.
Yeah. So I've always been kind of a writer of small space. Like my first chapbook, This Might Have Been Fire, is only 10 poems long, so it's an incredibly brief book. And then the one from Animal Heart Press, 40 Stitches Sewing a Body Against a Ramshackle Night, is actually kind of unique for me because the book is completely nothing but these very brief 3-line poems called Stitches. And they're similar to haiku, but I've never published these stitches anywhere, like in any literary journals. They were something that I always kept very private to myself, and I'm always kind of writing these little 3-line poems throughout the day. And one of my friends, an editor, Beth Gordon, I showed her a few of them, and she asked how many of them I'd written, and I told her, several hundred. But she challenged me to, if I were to put together a book of just stitches, what that would look like. So I went through several hundred of these, 3-line poems and picked out 40, and that makes the book itself. And I kind of go back and forth on the same topics, my longer poems and the stitches focus on kind of dealing with how the present is tangled up with the past, especially in Mississippi, dealing with doubt and loss of faith and just general family uneasiness. But it's been really interesting with this book because my other books I had kind of a strong amount of confidence out the gate because so many of the poems had already been published. But with these stitches, it was a side that readers of my writing hadn't experienced just because I've never published or shown them to anyone. So it was a much more kind of vulnerable step. But I've since grown to the book a lot, so I'm absolutely in love with it. And then Animal Heart Press did an incredible job making it the object that it is.
When you talk about that idea of writing for oneself, maybe things that haven't been publicly yet, more generally, I think a lot of writers have that point where they're writing personally and then have some sort of epiphany or idea of taking it public and starting that publishing process. What was the moment for you or the events that led you to make that leap initially?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think that, so just as a person, I'm kind of weirded out by the whole process of publishing to begin with, just because, as writers, we normalize sharing our writing, but writing itself is a very private thing to a lot of people. And then when you go from the private aspect of writing it to the very public aspect of sharing it, it's two very different sides to a coin, just because, work that's now being shared is now being, shared outside of your control to a large extent. And I think it takes a lot just in general. I mean, even for well-experienced, well-established writers, I think there's always that moment of kind of leaving the safety net of publishing your writing. But I think I'd gotten pretty comfortable sharing my writing, and then coming around to sharing these 3-line poems, it was kind of starting over all again. I remember I had a lot of anxiety leading up to publishing the poems just because, like, no one had ever read them. So it was kind of a ethereal experience, I think. And then once it got in the world and I started to, like, get messages of people with the book, and, like, I was overjoyed that, generally people have loved it, but it's a very anxiety-inducing and beautiful thing to work up to sharing something that you're not even sure if you're ready to share it yet.
Absolutely, and it's good to continue taking those chances and pushing the personal envelope, because things can get complacent sometimes when we've gotten into a groove, so to speak, and so continuing to push the envelope forward, taking those risks, and having that anxiety is a good sign that there's still an excitement there.
For sure.
So, Jude, I want to bring you back into the conversation here and maybe ask you a question along those similar lines. That what was the turning point for you when you talked about that poem that came out at a certain point, but had writing in general been something that had been with you for a while before that?
Yeah. Well, yes, in the sense that it was kind of my childhood dream, which got lost when I grew up, and so it felt like a coming home, I guess. And as I said earlier, I did spend quite a lot of time working on. I have several novel manuscripts in a bottom drawer. Let's just put it like that, which took me quite a while. But I think what that did for me, all of that working with words, which didn't get close to publication, actually reintroduced me to a kind of creativity as an adult that I hadn't really practiced before. So I think that really helped me when I started to write poems. I actually got my first, not to brag, but my first publication actually came quite quickly after I started writing poetry, and then there was quite a long lull after that. So definitely not to brag, but I think that's because I had been working with words for about a decade at that point before I wrote that first poem. I had been rediscovering my love of language and interest in language, and I think the poetry I wrote then was a lot more straightforward, perhaps, than what I do now. It took me quite a while to really get comfortable with what I wanted to say, but I never really looked back from first attempting to put words onto a page. And oddly enough, I don't really feel as if I'm writing for myself ever. I sometimes, that you get asked that question, if you never published anything again, would you still write? And I'm not 100%, I'm fairly sure that I would, but I'm not 100% certain, because I really feel like I want to get my words out into the world, not for fame and glory. Otherwise, I probably, wouldn't be a poet. It's not the best route to fame and glory. But because I feel like, I really have something that I want to say that I hope will help me to connect, not even just as a writer, but as a person. Not something that I do that easily in my private life. So this, I think, is my way of reaching out. And so, yeah, for me, it's a lot about having something to say out in the world. And that's what keeps me coming back to it, I think, really.
I think there's a lot of poets and artists in general that can relate to that sense of maybe being introverted personally, but having that sense of wanting to release something and make that connection with the world at large and readership. And so when you are making that connection and putting your words out there, what is the hoped for response, or what do you anticipate readers coming away with?
That's a good question. I hope that I can encourage a reader to maybe think and then think again about some stuff. I try to write poetry that is kind of personal, but it's also about the world that we live in and what's going on in the world. And I would like to think that by using language in interesting ways, in different ways, in maybe even challenging ways, and not just language, but also, space and sound. And some of my poems are really about the breakdown of language and the limits of communication. But I hope that by doing those things, by disrupting to some extent, by using language in different ways to encourage a response that might be the beginning of a conversation, I guess. I like to talk about stuff. I like to talk about ideas. I like to talk about politics in the broadest sense, about philosophy, about, big ideas. And I have tried in my poems to find a way to talk about big ideas while still keeping it tied down. So you can't just you can't just go large in a poem. It has to be tied down. It has to be specific in certain ways. And so that's, I guess, the connection between those big ideas and, the stuff that might relate more directly to my personal experience of the world. But yeah, I write as I often say that I write as protest, and I think that is at the core of what I do. So I'm protesting. Some people may agree with me. Some people may not. Some people may think differently about some things or see them from a different angle. But that's I think at the core of what I'm trying to do.
Very well said. I like that idea of having the reference point that serves as that nexus of context that can draw the readers in. So definitely want to hear some selections from these new books from both of you, or whatever you're inspired to read tonight. And so I'd like to maybe turn the floor over to you. Maybe we can go back and forth, and we'll start with CT. If you have something you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, sure, Scott. So I'll read a few of the stitches, and the stitches aren't titled, so I'm still figuring out how to read them. I'll break them up with the word stop. So 40 stitches, sewing a body against a ramshackle night. My father's watch, heavy on my wrist. Stop. Some days I mistake my handwriting for his. Stop. The scar in my eyebrow glows in the moonlight. Stop. Pile of bricks. Whose church was this? Stop. Chapel rings its bells so we don't forget it's there. Stop. I forget I'm here, and then you rest your head on me. Stop. Sky wide as my father's chest. Stop.
Right.
And then to finish my section, I'll just read a poem that was actually published today, and it's not one of the stitches. This poem is called When the Crows Came. I didn't hate them. They needed to roost, and I needed a purple deep enough to convince the neighborhood boys of my skin's milkiness. I don't mind seeing strands of my hair in the nests, pages of scripture I've torn out, strips of silver chocolate wrappers, stray threads from old sweaters, they take it all. Curious gods. The young ones chirp. Every morning, my body's outlined in feathers, a whole bed dappled dark as a beginning. I don't know what to say. I say thank you. The crows don't know what to say, so they don't speak. They just keep finding parts of me to make useful. I thank them for that too.
Very nice. Where did that piece
Beautiful.
appear?
Thank you.
Where did that piece appear today, CT?
Oh yeah, sorry. That was that appeared in the West Review, and that's at westreview.org.
All right, congratulations. And
thank you.
Can I say one thing about those stitches?
Yeah.
Like, is that okay, Scott? Like,
yeah,
so
please do.
it's so cool. Hi, everybody. This book that CT did, I mean, like you hear these little snippets, and they're so beautiful just read like that, and I loved how you did the stop in between. But this book also is like a full experience to have it in your hands in front of you because, you know, the stitches are spread out over these pages, and our lovely Amanda did like art that goes with them. And so it's just kind of this, it's not just these words, it's this experience, and it's so incredible, and I urge you all to consider buying one because it really is, it's so unique. Like, I've never seen anything like this book, you know. And big shout out to Amanda, of course, always for cover and this interior that's just so spectacular. But it was so cool to hear you read them like that too, CT. I loved it.
For sure. And I second that shout out to Amanda because she did an incredible job with the layout and design and everything with it.
Right? She just gives everything her all, and, you know, the press just, well, she runs the show. We all know that. But, I mean, everything from Jude's cover to your interior, like, it's stunning, and it makes the book, it makes the poetry sing, you know? And I wish everyone could, like, see the inside of it right now as you're reading. That's why I wanted to say something.
While you're talking, Ellie, do you want to give a bit of an intro about Jude's book as well before she reads us some selections?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Jude's book. I mean, we had Jude's launch a week or two ago. I don't even know when, but and it was such a special night. And Jude's poetry, we met when I was poetry editor at Anti-Heroin Chic, and you know, I read a submission from them, and I accepted it immediately, and we became friends from that exchange. And when this manuscript came to me and Beth and Amanda, and it's possible Beth brought both of these to us. I can't quite remember. I know she brought CT's, and she may have brought Jude's as well, but you know, we both took a look at Jude's and we all said, oh my God, yes. You know, we were just, there's something about Jude's writing that just, it's soft and it's quiet, but it speaks such volumes. Like, it's, you know, I like to think at Animal Heart Press, we like to publish things we've never seen before. For example, CT's, you know, these new and exciting and unique things. And Jude's language is completely its own. Their punctuation, their words, their rhythm, their context. I mean, wow, you know. So it's pretty extraordinary, and we feel very privileged to have hosted both of these books. And we love you both very, very much. I'm so proud of you. Proud to be your author. Yeah, thank you. And you know, and it's also so special how, like, we become friends, you know, and when we say, like, we welcome you into our family of Animal Heart Press, it really, you know, we really think of you as our family and want to take care of you and have it be a good experience and show the world your poetry in the most beautiful and gentle and loving way that we can. So I thank you both for trusting us to do that.
Well, it definitely has been a great experience. Definitely.
I'm glad, Jude. I'm
well,
so
after
glad.
that lovely introduction from Ellie, Jude, would you like to take the floor and share some of your work with us?
Sure. Thank you so much. Okay. I opened the book somewhat at random, and I think I'll just start with this poem that I opened to, which is called Toward Delusions of Flight. Before flight, birds first exhaust all other possibilities. Flightless, I preen my draggled feathers. Our Father's ease means we may fly, I say. Someday, grown, I know better. I am not bird. Mother sun, father moon, I am pinioned, not winged. My feather roots grow through rock. My shadow, when cast, can only stretch towards cliff's edge. One day, I wake into rootlessness. I know rock erodes. I watch my shadow cast into the shape of a bird. At sundown, I pluck breast feathers, blue-green iridescent, each bloodied quill, a loaded pen. And then, thank you.
So beautiful, Jude. So gorgeous.
And I like the idea of just flipping through and picking random poems.
I do too. When Jude was about to start reading, and they said that they had just opened it, I was looking at this one called where did it go? Coming back to it. Taxonomies, and it struck me about Jude that you come across people in your life that are so incredibly gentle and loving and sweet, but then also Jude is just like a genius, I think. Jude, I'm quite sure you're a genius. Like, your titles alone just kind of floor me. They're so brilliant, and they make me want to, like, work harder at my poetry. So good. But anyway, I really like that one, Taxonomies. So cool. I don't know if I've ever heard you read that one.
I can read that one now if you like. It's on the opposite page to the one that I just read, so that works.
There you go. Maybe it's meant to be.
Okay. Taxonomies. I am a broken link in the chain of generations. My name, which I invented, ends with me. Nazis inventoried gold teeth. Also women's plaited hair and baby skin. Taxonomy is death. Audubon killed his birds to keep their wings still, to capture them on paper. My primary appetite is for creation. The times I tear chapters from sacred books to eat. Paper tastes of fear. My skin roots me, dead but not, in lost DNA. Order is God. If God's a pebble in my shoe, I will go barefoot. I must deviate until my skin soles, until my unchained feet bleed.
Jude, that one.
There's some fantastic lines in there.
That's a Plath ode right there in my mind. That is just
primary appetite
gorgeous
for creation.
art. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Jude. And we've got about 10 minutes left in the show, so I think we can have a couple more poems from each of you. CT, can you talk a little bit about any future projects you have with the book, or readings, events, where people can find the new collection?
Yeah. So if you want to, you can find it at Animal Heart Press's website. I also have a website that's got all of my books and publications kind of together, and that's at ctsalazarpoet.wordpress.com. And I'll read just a few more of the stitches, and that'll be it from me. So there's kind of two narratives running through the chapbook, and one is very much in line with thinking about my family and my place within Mississippi, and the other is thinking about like my relationship with my spouse and who she is as a person. So I'll read some of those. Found your eyelash in my favorite book. Stop. You opened your hands like a small book. Stop. Car flipped on the dirt road where we kissed. Stop. Car flipped on the dirt road, its tires still spinning. Stop. Thinking of cicadas before I become cicadas. Stop. Standing on the pier tonight, stars above and stars below. Stop. Last firefly, lights on, then off. Stop. And that's all from me. Thank you for having me, Scott.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate it. Congratulations on the new book, and really enjoyed speaking with you tonight, CT.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn things back. I'm going to turn things back over to you in just a moment, Jude. I'd like to hear a couple more poems from you, but first we've got a caller from a 618 area code. 618, are you there?
Hi, it's Beth.
Hey, Beth.
Hey, Beth.
How are you?
Hi, Beth. Good. Hi, everyone. Hi, CT. Hi, Jude. Hi, Ellie. Hi, Scott. I just wanted to call in and say I've been listening, and just how awesome it is to have these two wonderful authors with our press, and just tell you I love you. Good to hear you both.
We love you. We love you, sweetheart.
Thank you,
so
Beth.
much for calling in, Beth. Do you have anything you want to read tonight?
No, I'm okay. But let's hear Jude read some more.
Okay. I'll second that.
Okay, I just opened the book randomly again, and there are a couple of things here which I guess are kind of related to each other. The first one is called Forests are Fragile Now. Unless you are woodpecker, do not tap. Leave bark unscarred by your etched remembrances. Trees bleed. Bark splits like parched skin oozing raw. Unless you are otter, do not dam. No sawtoothed construct will save you from inundation when worlds melt. Bark splits like sun-swelled plum, flesh. Unless you are hog, do not root. Your subterranean tunneling disrupts each earthy filament, infinite, will sense. Bark spit from digger's teeth, blood wet. Unless you are fox, do not scream. Forests are fragile now, and despite what you believe, no one will hear. Cords spit from choir pits, trash. Listen, care. Unless leaves breathe for you, sighing their indifference. Cords split like kindling, axed. Unless you sit with trees, lit trees like tiki torches, flash. Unless. And then, thank you. That actually has a a new title taken from the poem, which is infinitely better than the original title, which I banished from my thoughts. So don't ask me what it was, but titles are really hard, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. This next poem is on the opposite page again, and it's called Man Fire Speaks. I guess at this time of the evening it's okay to curse a little because there is a curse word in this poem.
Feel free.
Thank you. I will. Okay, Man Fire Speaks. I am Man Fire, power unleashable as friction, flash, a thunderclap, accompaniment to oily rags, a cigarette, a faulty wire. No, not hellfire, fuck's sake, that's a tired trope. If I devour a forest and no witnesses are found, does Gaia call that conflagration act of God? What titan with a matchbook and bad attitude, what omniscient mind, lighter in hand, damns rabbits, damns woodchucks, damns bears? Where in your book would Gaia read as admonition, burn the world, fuck's sake? Revelation. I am Man-Fire. I am not your God. I'm a prisoner on license, ankle monitor, fuse. You can use me. I can be controlled. But if arsonists now rule, they will incite one spark, a light. I am never alone.
Powerful work. Thanks so much for sharing, Jude. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
The night would not be complete unless we also welcomed in Animal Heart Press's Amanda McLeod from Australia. You there?
Hi.
Hey, Amanda.
Yes, I am. How are you, Scott? Hi, Jude.
Good.
Hi, CT.
How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Hi, sweetheart.
Slightly warm. Hello.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Beth. Oh, we're all here. I just wanted to call in and say a very quick thank you to Jude and CT. CT for handing his book to me and just letting me go a little wild with it. And Jude for giving me such a beautiful, striking book to work with, and for being such an easy author to work with.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I thought I was being quite difficult. So,
oh heavens, no.
Amanda has different standards for all of that, Jude. She doesn't let little things bother her at all.
I'm very relieved.
That's why she's so good at her job.
Of course, and she is exceptionally good at her job.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm highly oversensitive, and that's why we balance each other well.
It's easy to be good at what you do when you have good material to work with.
Mhm. That's a very good point. Yes.
Yes. It is.
Well, and we
Definitely.
want our authors to be happy. I mean, that is our goal. Is for our authors to be thoroughly happy with the product and the experience, and it's so.
Yeah, we're here for authors. We're not here for anything else. We're here to raise authors' voices.
That's right.
You always put out high quality work, and everyone there at Animal Heart Press puts their heart and soul into it, I know. So it's always a pleasure to do these episodes with your authors. Coming down to about 30 seconds left in the show, but I want to say thank you to Jude Marr and C.T. Salazar and Elizabeth Horan, Beth Gordon, and Amanda McLeod. Everyone should go check out these new books at Animal Heart Press, and I hope everyone has a great holiday week ahead.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. And thank you for asking me.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Great to hear you.
You too.